frogs is out there. Froggy the frogs. I named him Frogs. F-R-O-G-G-Z. That's my little froggy. My pet froggy. He's came back for 2 seasons now. Well, there should be 2 of them out there. So far, I've only seen 1. So I don't know if one of them didn't make it through hibernation or whatever, or not. But that's Frogs. F-R-O-G-G-Z. That's his name. And he likes to hang out on the back of the water faucet. But that's Frogs. And like I say, hopefully I'll see the other one. But yeah, he came back for the 2nd season. Because, you know, he hibernated in my yard. And I got rid of the raccoons, so the raccoons aren't eating my little frogs and my little turtles. I didn't really want to get rid of the raccoons, but I just had to. Because they eat my little frogs and the damn small turtles. But anyway, so hopefully I'll see the other one, because I know there was 2 of them last year, and I've only seen 1 this year. So hopefully the other one I'll be able to see it pretty soon. Sibi. Oh, so yeah, so I forgot to talk about that other experience, which was really cool. So I did have some cool ones this morning too. I only remember one of them right off the bat, but it's kind of funny because every time I got up to go pee-pee, like between, I don't know, 6 to 9 or whatever, I'd always have a, you know, pretty decent OBE-Vr-lucid dream. But right now I only remember the last one right before I woke up. But yesterday when I did that video about Big Bend and stuff, I forgot, and to Florida, I forgot to talk about that other one I had a couple days ago or whatever, where I was in Austin, Texas. It was me and my buddy Brenda, and I knew her, you know, when I was there living there in Austin, Texas. And in the scenario, I was in Austin, Texas with Brenda, and she was driving us around. And we were in that area close to where I was living at the time. In the scenario, we were in that general area, that Bannister Road area, and that highway 210 or whatever it's called. And so, you know, all of a sudden we were driving, and then she's like, "Let's go eat somewhere." And I said something like it has to be gluten-free stuff. And so then she started driving around, we proceeded to find a gluten-free restaurant. And then I was like, no, it can't be gluten-free, it has to be a paleo restaurant. And so then we started driving around, and we were looking for, she was trying to find a paleo restaurant and stuff. So we were trying to find a paleo restaurant. And then all of a sudden we started driving into it wasn't really a parking garage, but it was kind of like a parking garage. It was an enclosed area. I didn't necessarily, I felt like I was on ground level. I didn't necessarily feel like I was underground. I felt like I was on ground level. And it was enclosed, and like I say, it was kind of like a parking garage. And I looked to my right, and I looked to the left, and hold on, I just had it up, the picture. And all of a sudden, the walls were like striped blue and yellow, like just like that. The walls, and I was like, wow. I was like, all of a sudden, you know, I was like, wow, we're in the Willy Wonka auditorium area, and it wasn't a Willy Wonka chocolate factory. It was like a Willy Wonka auditorium. I mean, I'm not sure what went on there, but it was like a Willy Wonka auditorium for some kind of show or something about Willy Wonka. And it was so weird. I don't know where Joel comes up with that idea, but I like how he puts bright colors and stuff in my scenario sometimes, but the walls were just like beautiful blue striped and yellow striped like that. and we were just driving along under there in that parking garage area. But like I say, it wasn't really a parking garage. It was kind of like a little, like an alleyway, not underground, enclosed, that kind of led into the auditorium. And then what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and then and it was so weird because, like in the scenario, that really did exist in Austin, Texas, in that area. And then, of course, after I woke up, I'm thinking, that really didn't exist in real life, that Willy Wonka, auditorium. But yeah, I don't know. Joel probably got the idea because there was this place called Main Event. And I don't know if it's still open or not, but it's called Main Event. And you could do arcades and, what's that called? Twilight golf and stuff in there, and bowling and stuff. And yeah, but Joel made it different, he made it like a Willy Wonka auditorium type of place. But yeah, in the scenario, it was just like it was normal, and it really did exist in Austin, Texas, back when I used to live there and everything. That was all the thoughts. It's like I was just visiting her. But, in the scenario, I knew that when I had lived there, that Willy Wonka auditorium existed. But then, of course, after I woke up, I realized it didn't, Joel does that sometimes. He, makes you think all these things exist or whatever, in the scenario. And then when you wake up, you realize it really didn't exist in real life, that Willy Wonka auditorium. And I did watch Willy Wonka a few months back. But anyway, so that was the experience. I forgot. And there was some parts. It lasted quite a while. There's some other stuff too. Some other conversations we had and blah, 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 blah. And then I remember driving back out in a neighborhood. And then we were in a neighborhood and out in the sunny, open. And so I'm forgetting some parts. But anyway, that was kind of fun. But this morning I had a really kind of bizarre one too. I mean, it was fun, but I mean, it was just kind of bizarre. Okay, so and I have a million scenarios at that Deanne Sanders house up the street, that white house, because I used to play there when I was a kid or whatever. And the dad and the mom always used to take me to, I think they knew I was kind of poor, So they always paid for my lunch and everything. They always took me to Branson and paid for everything. Well, I was 10 years old, and they paid for everything. Of course, Deanna, she was kind of a spoiled brat because she was the only child, and he worked for City Utilities, and she was like a manager, RN. That was back in 1982, so they were very, they had money, you know what I mean? And so they spoiled Deanne because she was the only child. And so anyway, they would always take me to Branson and Hee Haw. We went to Hee Haw. And over there downtown Branson, we went to, we'd go to burger joints, and they would always pay for everything. And they took me to, what's that other place in Arkansas? And that's where I bought my Duran Duran and Michael Jackson posters. Eureka Springs. They took me to Eureka Springs. Funny thing is, I don't ever remember them taking me to anywhere in this town. It was always in Branson, or it's Branson or Eureka Springs. But yeah, they took me several times. But it was fun. And but yeah, in this town, I remember, I think it was either my mom or her mom would drop us off at the mall, and we would go buy gummy worms and shit like that. Oh yeah, those gummy worms are so good. We'd buy the gummy worms, and she'd buy perfume and stuff like that. But anyway, so the little white house up the street, where she lived, and I spent the night with her a few times too. In that little white house, and like I say, I've had experiences. Joel puts me in that house many, 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 many times, just like he puts me in mansions all the time, or hotels all the time, or takes me to London all the time, or Florida, or I've been to about every state in the United States and a lot of countries too, via OBE-Vr-lucid dream. Well, some of them were straight up out-of-body experiences. So yes, okay, so basically, it started off, I was, well shit, I can't remember what the name of that thingamajigger is. What are they called? Not a coaster. Coaster? Not a coaster. Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up. It has wheels on it. Wheels, shit, I can't think of what it's called. What is that called? Has a little long thing and you put your hands on it and you coast or whatever. Normally it'll have some brakes. Shit, I don't know what it's called. And I meant to look it up before I did the video. Wasn't a bicycle. It was a, I don't know why I can't think of the, and Wal Mart has them. You could probably get them on Amazon too, but Wal Mart would have them. Like a skateboard type of thing. Shit. Oh, skateboard. If I punch in skateboard, it might come up. What are they called? The little coaster things with the handlebars. Okay, hold on. Skateboards. With handlebars. Skateboards with handlebars. I thought it was called a coaster or something. Kickboard. I didn't think it was called kickboard. The foldable 3-wheel, learn to steer, fold to carry. Oh no, it's called a scooter. Duh. It's called a scooter. Well, I guess some people call them kickboards. I didn't know it was called that, but it's called a scooter. Duh. Scooter, basically. But, that's what it's called. God damn, I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, exactly. So, I was over there in front of her house on a scooter. And she wasn't living in the house under the scenario. I was on the scooter thing down the sidewalk over to if you're standing in front of her house, the back behind me is the sidewalk. And I was going east on the scooter. And on a scooter that I had. And I've had so many fun OBE-Vr-lucid dreams. Back a long time ago, like on Oak Street, and I would go to these houses, and it was such a blast. But anyway, so I was on a scooter, except in the scenario, the scooter had about 8 different wheels on them, like 8, almost like rollerblade wheels or something. It's kind of like 8 rollerblade wheels, but they were black. And so then all of a sudden, I was scooting along on my scooter. And it had kind of malfunctioned, or I crashed it or something. I crashed it, it had malfunctioned, and then boom, then all of a sudden about 4 wheels fly off in the direction of the house where in real life the mom and dad used to always hang out under the awning right there on the patio, and they had, you know, a little swinging seat dilly bobber. And so along the wall right there, boom, like 8 wheels, not 8, about 4 to 5 wheels flew off. And this was the funny part, they rolled and crashed up against they just like flung across the road and flew up against the back of the wall there of the patio. And then boom, they just smacked up against the wall and just sort of like disintegrated. They just disappeared and disintegrated. And as far as I remember too, when I looked back at my scooter, when I went back to the street and looked at my scooter, it was like in 4 to 5 different pieces too. So that was kind of funny. Okay, and then all of a sudden, I was like, wow, did you guys move in? You know, because in real life, the house is always kind of empty, but I noticed some people move in like for like a month and then they disappear and somebody else moves in. So I don't know if she's like renting it out or what. So in the scenario, it's kind of like, I knew that the house had been kind of rented, but not very often and blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, wow, did you guys did you guys just move here? At first I saw like two to three young daughters. They looked about 15, 16, 14. And I was like, did you guys just move here? And then all of a sudden the dad came out and he started talking to me and he said that they just moved there and that they bought the house. Because I told him that I used to hang out in that house and I knew the person that owned it and blah, 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 blah. So I was kind of happy that, you know, she finally sold it to them. And so they actually bought the house. So then I knew, okay, cool, because they would be there permanently. Okay, so then all of a sudden, 2 to 3 sons come out of the, come out of the living room. And I was just like, wow, you know, this mom and dad has like 8 kids, you know. They had at least 6 kids. And I was thinking in my head, like, wow, that's a lot of kids to be living in that little bitty house. Because it was only a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. And then I started to remember in the back how they had this one little room that they added on. But I don't know if it's dilapidated. In the scenario, I didn't know if it was. In the scenario, I figured that it had probably been renovated, but I didn't know that for a fact. And in real life, you know, I figure that little area, that add-on room or whatever, that's separate from the house, I figured it's probably dilapidated, but I really don't know. But so in the scenario, I started thinking, well, like maybe they renovated that little room that they added on a long time ago. That separate little building or whatever behind, you know, the kitchen of the house. And so anyway, I'm forgetting a lot of conversations and stuff, but we had a lot of conversations. And oh no, I forgot this part. Okay, so but at first I met the daughters, and then I met the father, and then all of a sudden the 2, it could have been 3, but I know there was at least 2. The 2 sons come out of the living room area, and I totally had it. I mean, I totally, like, as far as I remember, it was just a big vision that I had of the living room right when they came out of the living room. I didn't necessarily see the living room. I saw it as I remember it being from a long time ago in real life, like when they came out of the door of the living room. And all of a sudden I noticed the really, really, really blonde hair. And so that was kind of funny because the daughters, they just kind of had, you know, light brownish hair, kind of longish, light brownish hair. And okay, so then all of a sudden the mom, and this woman looked familiar. I mean, I don't know where Joe got her from, but I know it had to be from some from some movie or commercial or something, or somebody that I saw somewhere. But because I know she was familiar to me, but I can't remember who she was. But she looked very familiar to me. Joel's always putting familiar people in my scenario that I've seen before or whatever. Oh, you know what? It even could have been somebody at work or something. But anyway, so then all of a sudden I noticed the mom came out from the backyard area and came onto the porch, the patio, and she had really, really, really blonde hair too. And I was just like, wow, the sons look just like the daughter. The sons look just like the mother. I was thinking all that in my head, because they all had very, very, very blonde hair, except the dad. Well, the dad, as far as I remember, he just had a little bit of hair. He didn't have much hair at all. And the daughters, like I said, kind of had just normal brownish, lightish brownish hair. And but we had a lot of conversation. And I do remember the mom saying, it was nice to meet you and blah, 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 blah. And I said, did you guys buy the house? And they said that they bought the house. And they weren't from this area. They were from another town, but Joel didn't really tell me the other town or whatever they came from. And they told me, and she told me she was about to go to dinner up the street. And as far as I remember, she did name the restaurant, but I can't remember it. I can't remember it right now. The restaurant that she said that they were going to, because as far as I remember, it was a weird name in a restaurant that I've never heard of before. And then I told her that I can't really eat at restaurants and blah, 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 that I was allergic to a bunch of stuff. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, and the mom had kind of like slightly, not quite to the shoulder, but kind of curly hair. Not extremely curly, but kind of curly hair, and it kind of went down to like covered the back of her neck. It wasn't real long hair, but it was kind of curly and wavy, and it was very, very blonde, just like both sons. And the sons were probably a little older, like 18, 17, and the daughters were like 13, 14, 15, 16, something like that. And then I remember the sons saying something like, well, aren't you gonna... And I think I did, as far as I remember, I apologized that my wheels had slammed up against the back of the the patio. And then the sons were like, okay, well, aren't you going to, take the pieces of your wheels, back over to your scooter? And then that's when I went up to the back there of the patio and realized that all the wheels had just disintegrated. Like there was just like dust, like black dust from the wheels. And that's when I went over, I told them bye and everything. And then I walked back over across the street to my scooter. And that's when I noticed my scooter was in like 4 to 5 different pieces. But that was the experience I had this morning. And I had about 5 others too, but I can't remember them. And I just remember waking up to go pee at least 3 times between like 7 and 9. And then each time I fell back to sleep, boom, I got a pretty good OBE-Vr-lucid dream. But yeah, like Joel's always put me in her house, in Deanne's house. Well, now it's her house because the mom and dad are dead. And I know the sister lived in it for a few months. The sister is much older. She's probably like 70 by now. But, let's see, what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, that one video is on here where I was in that same house, and the talking cat. There was like a Christmas tree in the living room, and the talking cat. There was a talking cat in the edge of the living room, the edge of the living room. And that scenario is on here, but Joel's always putting me in that, house. But what was I going to say? But yeah, so, I was having all these visions of exactly what the house looked like. Oh, no, I did have the visions at first, when the guys, like came out of the living room. And then all of a sudden I did peek right through, I don't know, the door, window, or whatever. I peeked right through there and saw the big old living room. And I noticed how they painted and everything. So apparently they did renovate, like the living room in the scenario. Because I noticed it was, it was painted and the carpet looked kind of nice. So yeah, in real life, I don't know if it's really renovated or not. But in the scenario, after I kind of had the visions of, I knew that they really couldn't fit in that little bitty house, all of those kids and the mom and dad. And then I actually did peek through there and I saw fresh paint. There were white walls, but they were fresh painted. And so I knew that they had renovated the living room. In real life, that's exactly how it looked. I mean, it was the living room. It was a pretty big living room. And then the two small bedrooms. There are two pretty small bedrooms at the end of the living room. And then in the back of the house is all the kitchen, and the kitchen was pretty big. And like I said, it's a very small house, and then just one. I take that back. One small bathroom, that was off to the side of the kitchen. But I forgot, Deanne had a half bath. Well, it wasn't even a half bath. As far as I remember, it was just like a toilet and a sink. So maybe that is a half bath, or maybe just was a toilet, but I can't remember. But it wasn't like a full bathroom. But yeah, I guess you consider that a half bath. I think there was probably at least a sink and a toilet in her bedroom, after her bedroom, and it led into the parents' bedroom. Yeah, so it's actually one and a half bath. I forgot about that. But it's a very small house. There's no way, 8 people could live in that house, not even 6 people. I mean, 3 people could, because it's just 2 bedrooms. But the living room was pretty big. And one time in real life, the mom did this Halloween thingy for us, and we all did it right there in the living room. And it was carpet. They had, it was beigeish carpet back then. And as far as I remember, it was pretty clean looking back then. The kitchen was kind of cluttery and stuff. And I remember the mom just leaving $20 bills laying around and shit. I mean, I never stole any or anything, but she would leave $20 bills laying around. Because my parents, they were tight asses, or they were, we were kind of poor, so they never left money like that laying around. But and then I remember Deanne saying several times she would hear them having sex, like the mom and dad, because the room was very close to her room, and I remember Deanne, she always made fun of her mom, how fat she was and blah 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 blah. And she wasn't obese or anything. I mean, she was kind of a big lady, but she wasn't real short. I mean, I would say she's probably she could have been at least 5'8". But yeah, I mean, she wasn't real super fat, but I mean, she wasn't tiny either. But Deanne, I remember her always making fun of her mom, and she even said, "Could you imagine, like her on top of him? She would squish him, because the dad, he was a chain smoker, so he was he probably had cancer all of his life because of his chain smoking. That's probably why he was skinny all of his life. But yeah, he was pretty thin and small. And the funny thing is, I remember coming back from Kansas City, and I couldn't believe he was still alive. That was in 2004. I could not believe that man was still alive. Because I mean, he looked like death, when I was 10 years old. And he seemed like he was 60s when I was 10 years old. So I don't know how old he was when he died, but I guess he possibly could have been at least 80. Boyd, what was his name? Boyd. His name was Boyd Sanders. But I know he died not long after 2004. But because I remember him, when I came through the neighborhood in my car, from Kansas City, I saw him still sitting there, on the porch, on the patio, the little bitty patio with the swinging seats. the swinging, I don't know what you call it, seats or whatever. You know, it's like a furniture type of thing, and they swing or whatever. Or the swinging seat, you know, the cushiony long seat. And he was still alive in 2004, but I don't think he lived much longer than 2004. But yeah, I just couldn't believe he was still alive. I stayed in Kansas City till 2006. But well, in 2004, how old was I? I was 32. Yeah, and like I said, I couldn't believe he was still alive because I was 32 at that point. And like I said, I don't think he lived much longer after 2004. I'm pretty sure he did it, but he was still alive in 2004. And then I remember in 20 around, it may have been 2014, that I still remember the mom coming out to the mailbox getting the mail. And at that time, of course, back then she used to have kind of curly, thick, dark brownish hair, but her hair was already all gray, you know, in 2014. And yeah, she was still alive in 2014. The mother was, and I don't think she didn't live long after 2014. I know she didn't, you know, live much longer after 2014 because I had heard that she had fallen or something like that. But as of 2014, she was still alive, the mother, and she may have been, you know, late 70s. You know, she was, Deanne had those parents that were like 20 years older than, you know, my parents at the time. You know what I mean? Like, I remember people like that, you know, like my mom was only like, you know, 30 years old, and some of my friends, you know, they had parents that were like 50 or whatever at the time. You know, when my parents was only like 30 or whatever. But yeah, so Joel's always putting me in that house and creating scenarios for me. But yeah, it was really fun. Well, I can't even remember the other scenarios, but sure they'll come to me, but I don't care. I mean, because they weren't just excellent or anything, but this experience was kind of fun. Thanks for listening. Oh, but yeah, that's what a scooter looks like, and that's basically kind of like what I was on, except it had a lot more wheels.